It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host here this morning. Well, you're joining us in our third segment out of 4. We generally have a routine of 4 segments during the course of the day. And this morning, the theme, the general concept here is confrontation and your fear. Your fear of whatever it is that you fear. We're going to get into much greater detail to that in our last segment because I'm going to wrap this whole general idea up for you. But the question is out there, what is it that we are fearful of doing about illegal immigration? I mean, why is it that Americans aren't out in arms? Well, nobody wants to be called a racist. Nobody wants to be called a phobe, and you can insert whatever word you want before that. Russiaphobe, homophobe, racial phobe, Islamophobe, you get the idea. Because, well, everyone's going to look down on me if I do that, and I just don't really want to be, I don't want to be ostracized from the community. I mean, I don't want to call these senators and congressmen anymore because they just don't listen. I don't want to call these senators and congressmen because when I do, they make me feel like a fool. I don't want to speak out anymore because I'm afraid they're using that to put me on a list. Well, there's a group of Republicans out there who are, these are the same folks that ran on the platform of, we're going to do right. We want minimal fiscal responsibility in government. We want small government. We want a sealed border. You know, the folks like Paul Ryan, right? I mean, Paul, he says one thing to you and he does another thing. Jeb Bush, Jeb, ex-governor of Florida, married to a Hispanic woman, which is certainly no indictment of him, but it certainly raises questions about whether or not he's got a conflict of interest in the deal. Or at least, who's driving his motivation. Grover Norquist, he's the guy who did the contract with America thing, These are the same people, along with the multinationals and the new technorati, Google, AOL, Microsoft, Yahoo, the big companies that say, we can't get enough good talent here. And we need to be able to get people in from foreign countries. Really? I don't know. Last statistic I just saw says that half the young people who are graduating university today with advanced degrees in things like science, computer science even, can't find a job. I'm confused. Let's see. They can't find any job. It's not that they don't take your job over at Google or Yahoo or AOL because you don't offer enough money. Those are pretty lucrative jobs for somebody fresh out of college. And I mean, I guess I'm confused. Maybe what Google and AOL and Yahoo and all of those guys are really looking for is people that will do the job for like just over minimum wage. Then they get to go back to the American who has just graduated with an advanced degree and a newly minted tab for $87,269.83. Yeah, that's the college bill, which, by the way, interestingly enough, he no longer owes to the Bank of America or J.P. Morgan or any of those. He now owes it straight to the federal government. Well, golly gee, isn't that convenient? I mean, here's the government giving out loans for you to get an education that, quite frankly, you can't use. And now they're going to turn around and say, well, to further undercut you and pull the rug out from underneath your feet, we're going to allow illegals to come into the country and compete for your job at a lower wage, of course. And we want you to cheer it on in the name of social justice. What do you guys think? And American college people are saying, sounds like a good idea to me. Social justice, that's the right thing. That's the bandwagon to get on. And you say, well, wait a minute, stop. Why do you believe in social justice? Could you explain to me the foundations for your belief in social justice? Well, most Americans don't say that because they don't want to be called a racist or a racophobe, a Hispanic phobe. No, they're not illegal immigrants. Don't use that word. They are undocumented workers. You better not use that word illegal or alien around me. Now, I've got to go fill out 17 more resumes, so you're just going to have to excuse me. Don't you dare start a war with me on social justice. I believe in it. Well, could you tell me why? Because it's the right thing to do. It is? Well, I mean, you just graduated and you've got this $86,000 bill. And by your own admission, you just filled out your 17th resume today and you still haven't even gotten an interview. The economy is in real trouble and your job, well, you don't have a job. Maybe that's the problem. But it's the right thing to do. Well, could you tell me why it's the right thing to do? Because everyone should have a chance. Right. And you just got yours. It cost you $86,000. And now when you are actually within reach of the goal, they move the goalpost. That's not what it is at all. Oh, really? You see, you're just a, pick the adjective you want, racist, homophobe, Islamophobe, whatever it is. It doesn't really make any difference. You can pick whatever adjective you want. You're just a, one of them. Yeah. I know. See, as soon as we try to have a conversation based on reason, based on logic, we can't have that because that might challenge all that you have just spent the $86,000 on. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut that conversation off using a derogatory term to describe me. Because I'm going to make you expose yourself for the fraud and the deceptive mind that you are. Now, that's your usual college student. How this stuff applies to John Boehner and Paul Ryan and Jeb Bush and that whole crowd, Marco Rubio, and that's a whole different circumstance. That sounds more like coercion. That isn't, we've indoctrinated this dope into being a toady for our self-defeating, self-treason position. That sounds more like, Congressman so-and-so. You're in a position here as a leader. And if you want to continue to lead, if you want to do what's right for the people in your district, if you want to continue to fight on their behalf, you have to be here. And, being here isn't so bad. I mean, let's be honest with you. We've given you everything that you need to be able to stay in power and stay in it. We give you money. And we make sure that the laws are set up in such a way that you can't really be removed. So what exactly is it of this process that you don't like? I mean, why would you risk all of that? Because after all, you're really here to speak on behalf of your constituents back home. And you can't do that if you're not here. And you do realize, of course, that, well, you were sent that email, right? The one that talked about the pictures. Yeah, the vacation. Yeah, that's the one. Right. And, of course, well, we don't have to go into what would happen if those came out, do we? No. So here's how it needs to happen. You see, if you want us to continue to help you, you have to help us. Well, what if it all comes apart? I mean, our economy's in big trouble here. What if the dollar collapses? What if we're sold out to foreign interests? Listen, you know that we've got these facilities for you and your family. We've already explained that to you. You have nothing to worry about. Well, what about my constituents at home? Well, listen, we're doing the best we can. We can't save everybody. And, of course, we do have those pictures. Congressman so-and-so. So now we have a president who can't seem to find enough dirt to accomplish the task. And so what he's going to do is reduce the statute of limitations on illegal immigration from 3 years to 2 weeks. What? Yeah, 2 weeks. So in other words, if you can stay hidden away for just two measly little weeks, you will now have become qualified to not be deported. You see, after you've been here for 15 days, you're not new anymore. You went from 3 years to 2 weeks. And this is all part of the idea that there are a group of pinheads in Congress that either we just don't have enough dirt on, or they actually listen to those idiots back home. Yes, of course we laid out the options for him. Yes, of course we applied the pressure. He or she just isn't listening. All right, well, call the president's office and tell him we're just going to have to do this the dictatorial way, the banana republic way. We'll just bypass those people in Congress. But what about the Constitution? The what? Come on. What kind of an archaic idiot are you? Constitution? Schmonstitution. You got to be kidding me. You think we're going to let the Constitution stand in the way of achieving the goals of this administration? What kind of an idiot are you? You do want to stay in this job, don't you? I mean, let's be honest. You're making pretty doggone good money. Your future is secure. What was that question again? So you see, what we have is a lawless group of gangsters who, for all intents and purposes, have taken over our country and hijacked what used to be a nation of freedom, a nation of honor and respect. And we have a bunch of brainwashed, knuckle-dragging, apolitical, indoctrinated, drug-addled, drug-induced youth. Yes, I said it. All these kids graduating college with all these brilliant ideas about social justice, the utopian fantasy of it won't hurt me to make sure that everybody else gets an even break. Well, I beg to differ. It will hurt you. It's already hurting you, and you're being told that it's not. Now, who are you going to believe? Your lying bank account? Why would you believe your lying bank account? Let's just go to another protest. I see what's wrong with America, you say. I understand, and I see it. Well, then, my next question to you is, why haven't you done something about it? Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm only one person, you say. Well, you can speak out. You can go to your church, and you can talk out there. You can go to the university where you attend, and you can speak out there because you know better, and you understand the truth. But if I do that, they'll label me a racist. Well, just because you're against someone's ideas doesn't necessarily mean that you hate the individual. That's not how it works. Only if you let it work that way. As I recall, let's see, every church has a phrase that says, love the sinner but hate the sin. If that's in fact the case, then why aren't all of you church-going people applying that principle in your own lives? And why isn't that your argument back to everyone that would call you a abortion phobe, homophobe, racist phobe, Islamophobe? I mean, you're just not using your sense. Rather than engage in a thoughtful argument and have a defensive position to put forth, you'll just be silent. Meanwhile, the nation is, coming apart at an astounding rate. You can watch the pillars buckling around us as we speak. This isn't something, new. I guess I don't know what you're waiting for. I just don't know what you're waiting for. Well, I don't want to get in trouble. I could be on a list. They could say I mean to be violent. They could say I'm inciting violence. If I say we need to have another revolution in the country, they could say, this guy is not part of the mainstream. He's way out there on the fringe. I seem to recall that there was a time in our country when there were other people that were considered fringe. Let's see if we can remember some of their names. John Adams, Samuel Adams. That's two Adams. Huh. There's a guy named Josiah Bartlett. there was a guy named George Clymer. There was this other dude who was really weird looking. Ben Franklin was his name. Jerry Elbridge, or Elbridge Jerry, actually, depending upon how you remember him. There were a couple of people that actually kind of got on, and let's see, Alexander Hamilton, John Hancock, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Patrick Henry. Now, he was a troublemaker, huh? Yeah. You know, those guys were fringe till they changed the world. Some guy named Paine. Thomas, I think it was. Thomas Paine. He was really out there on the fringe. He wrote this thing called Common Sense. It was a pamphlet. He was a Brit, and he was a pamphleteer. He'd write these pamphlets, and he'd put them out there under a pseudonym. They weren't his real name. And he would put these things out there to try to change public opinion. And they said all kinds of manner of mean and horrible things about him. They accused him of being, well, what today we'd call maybe an insurgent, even. Belligerent acts. I think that's how they would have defined what Tom did. Belligerent acts. Interesting. There was even this dude, guy by the name of Washington, who stood up and said, you know, I got to admit, folks, I'm not real happy with the status quo, and we've been living underneath this tyranny for long enough. We've put up with it for long enough that we have to do something about it. And while I don't want to have to, leave my farm and get out there, I'm actually going to have to, I think, at this stage in the game, step up to the leadership role and say, I'm willing to do what's necessary to try to help, coalesce the group, right? I'll be a catalyst, if you will. You all know me. You know that I'm a guy of integrity and that I pretty much mean what I say, and I have the right intentions. And I'm going to have to tell you, from this point forward, I'm not going to be afraid of conflict. I'm not going to be afraid of confrontation. I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to do the right thing. And I personally am going to make a difference. Or we're all dead anyway, and it really won't make a whole hill of beans worth of difference. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. We'll be back in just a moment.